So hello and welcome, I'm Frederick Dunn, and this is The Way to Be. Now, we're looking at my environment here in the northeastern part of the United States, the state of Pennsylvania. It happens to be September the 17th, and these are cosmos for the honeybees. But honeybees are not the only flying insects that are social that cover this area. This is a follow-up video. So if you want to see the previous videos to this one dealing with yellow jacket wasps, like this nest right here, please look down in the video description and you'll find the links to it. This is a playlist at the Frederick Dunn YouTube channel. So sure, there's something interesting going on here. And if you notice, look at the top left, August 17th. This paper wasp colony was torn apart. I call them paper wasps. They're really just yellow jackets. And they do make their nests out of cellulose. That's why I call them that. But paper wasps are a different species altogether. I found these on the ground after a storm. I collected them, put them in this suet feeder, and put them on the branch that you see right here on a Dawn redwood tree. Now, how long have they been on this branch since they fell apart, since they were eaten by skunks? 30 days. So what's that mean? That means that they had to lay eggs, the queen did, and those eggs had to hatch in 30 days. Well, the eggs hatch and they go through pupa state, larvae, pupae, and then they emerge in 30 days and we get new wasps. So if you look at the top left there, that's what they looked like after the storm, clinging to a branch, no nest. And then when I put them in the suet container with some of the cellulose, they reconstructed their nest, and that's what we're looking at today. And so that has been 30 days since the storm. And the storm wasn't the only problem that they had, as I mentioned. Skunks, we suspect, ate all of the larvae that was in the nest, and we did find the queen, so that's shown in previous videos. So we're trying to see what's going on here. Now, being that it's been 30 days, that's enough time, so I'm told, for the eggs to have hatched, and then for the larvae to be fed, and then enter the pupa state, and then start to emerge. So we should start to see more workers coming out of this nest again. Now we're looking at the south-facing side of it. It's very interesting. We get a chance to look at this up close and personal. I'm going to get you even closer. This video, if you haven't noticed, is an hour and 11 minutes long. I'm not going to talk through the whole thing. I'm going to let you look at these wasps and admire them for a while. Now, maybe you're sitting there thinking, and many of you have commented, why on earth would you let yellow jacket wasps live? Well, because I want to learn about them. I do keep honeybees. There's a honeybee apiary 100 feet from this nest. The chickens that I have here, this particular one, is a buff Orpington. She's walking around directly under the nest, and the nest is only 3.5 to 4 feet off the ground, so it's pretty low. But what I'm getting across here is yellow jacket wasps aren't always terrible. They don't always just attack you for no reason. Usually people get stung by wasps because the ones that are in the ground, generally you run your mower over them or a weed whacker near them. You don't discover them until the nest is large. And this time of year, a lot of people in September are discovering wasp nests from various species. These happen to be yellow jackets. We also have the bald-faced hornets in our area. And this one presented itself as an opportunity for me to look them over, share with you about them. Now, I know these videos are not popular. People, for some reason, just don't want to stare at yellow jacket wasps. But here's the thing. While I'm making this video, I am sitting within just a couple feet of the nest. Now, what I've learned over the past 30 days is that initially they did attack me. Just as fierce as they could. They sent out as many of their workers as they possibly could to sting. They were stinging the camera, they were stinging me, and they've calmed down because I've learned some things about yellow jacket wasps. One is they remember things. They remember faces. They remember each other's faces, which is very interesting to me. So this is my guess, of course, because I'm just a beekeeper who happens to like to observe nature. I think that they have learned to recognize me I also think that because I don't attack their nest anymore, they've become very tolerant. They also don't attack the camera anymore. The camera's black. So usually a dark color like that, if you combine that with an audio pickup, and you're going to get yourself immersed here pretty good in stereo sound right up next to the nest, because the camera lens itself is only 6 inches from the nest for this sequence. Now remember, this opening faces the north. So I'm going to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about yellow jackets. Should we worry about them for the honeybees? Well, one of the things that I'm watching is what kind of protein, animal protein, they're bringing back to the nest to feed their continuing larvae. Because, remember, they're going to be making queens. And at the end of the year, they will no longer use this nest. So at the end of the sequence, I'm going to be dissecting the nest to look and see how things are inside. It's going to be pretty darn convenient because where's the nest built? In a suet feeder. And the suet feeder has a hook on it, and the hook is just hanging on the tree branch. So this is fun for me to do. Now let's make a couple of comparisons here. These are not honeybees, no question about that. Although, for the general public, often people will contact a beekeeper and say, hey, I have bees in my tree. If you see a paper nest like this hanging in a tree, under your soffit, on your porch, in your shed, these are not honeybees. These are flesh eaters. These are meat eaters. Now, by that I mean the larvae eat animal protein to grow and develop. These adults that you see coming and going, they don't have the ability to eat meat. There's one flying out with a chunk right there. I don't know what he's getting rid of or she's getting rid of. There are drones here and there are workers. The workers are female. Drones are male. You're going to see both in this video. Now you don't see the queen. I did show her in the very first of the series because she was on the nest and she does not leave the hive. She doesn't have to. So there's some other things that give the advantage to honeybees. For example, honeybees that, as I mentioned, are about 100 feet away in their hives. They have a perennial nest. So honeybees invest in their infrastructure and they occupy the nest for several years straight. Now they can also do things when the weather turns cold, like warm the cluster, keep their brood warm. So honeybees generate heat with their thorax by vibrating their flight muscles, burning calories, and keeping their brood at 94 to 97 degrees Fahrenheit. And I like to do thermal scans, so I thought it would be fun to do thermal scans of this yellow jacket wasp nest hanging here on the Dawn redwood tree, completely exposed. It has multiple layers of cellulose inside. But here's what I learned. They do not make any attempt to warm the eggs, to keep the larvae warm, or the pupa. In fact, the only heat signatures I could pick up were the wasps themselves, their thorax, which there's the head, the thorax, the abdomen. That thorax warms up so that they can fly. They tend to fly out early. In fact, this video sequence that you're watching here started at about 9 o'clock in the morning. By the end of this hour and 11-minute video, you're going to be seeing a lot of activity because it spans a lot more time than that. It goes into 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're going to see some interesting things that they do. They are very different from honeybees. I don't have to tell you that really. But just in case you want to know some details, I'll fill you in. They can sting. No great surprise. That's how a lot of people meet them. They can sting you over and over. Their stinger is smooth. Their stinger does not come out of the body of the wasp and does not leave itself in the skin of the mammal that they sting. So they can do it over and over, and they do it in big groups, which sometimes is some people's first unfortunate introduction to wasps. Now a honeybee, on the other hand, of course it's the female that stings, just as it is the female wasp that stings. That's right. The male, you could grab, that's one right there. You can actually grab that wasp and pick it up and it can't sting you. It can bite. Look at the antennae on that. See how long they are in a continuous radius arc there? Look at the banding on its abdomen, slightly different from the worker females there. You could pick that wasp up. Knowledge is power. You can impress your friends. So, honeybees, when they sting, the stinger comes out of the abdomen of the honeybee dies. Honeybees use plant protein to raise their young. Honeybees gather and store honey. That's why they're called honeybees. Apis mellifera, mellifera. So honey transporter. The wasps do not transfer nectar around. They do land on flowers. They do gather nectar. They collect nectar from flowers. If you put out a sugar syrup feeder somewhere, you're going to get wasps, hornets, and bees and flies and everything else. And bumblebees too. All of those species go after sugar-rich nectar. So this is why even these wasps, oftentimes you'll have people angry at you if you kill some wasps, because they'll point out, did you know that they're pollinators also? And you might think, well, they don't really need to pollinate to do anything. They don't do anything with the pollen. Honeybees feed their larvae with the pollen. But look at the bodies of these wasps. They're powdered up pretty good with pollen, which means they do have hair on their bodies. They're just not as hairy as bees. And the hair on their bodies, just by pure happenstance, collects pollen. So when they fly from one floral nectar source to another, they are transferring pollen around, which makes them also pollinators. Now, there's another thing that wasps do that honeybees cannot. They hunt and predate on a lot of pests. And I know that you'll hear that all the time, which is of no consolation once you've been stung while you just happen to be walking down your driveway, visiting your mailbox, going into a shed that you haven't been in all year. All of a sudden you open the door and you're met with a flurry of wasps. But they are beneficial. And here's the thing. I've watched them collect bagworms in an afternoon and clean them out completely. Sometimes you'll see a wasp land and gather a soft-bodied bug, worms, little inchworms, things like that. So remember, they're doing that. They're collecting those things, bringing them back to this paper wasp nest, and then they're feeding the larvae, and then the larvae excrete a nice sugary treat as a reward for the forager that brought them the animal protein. Now, what kind of proteins will they eat? They'll eat your picnic meats. So what else happens at the end of the year? People have picnics, people have cookouts, people have hamburgers and hot dogs and all kinds of things, and you'll get the pesky yellow jacket wasps all around. Now, the interesting thing too is when they're out foraging, and even though they're trying to get your bologna and things like that, and they will carve off pieces and fly away with them, they're not very aggressive while they're at those feeding sites. They're just a pest. Now, if you put your hand on one, you're going to be stung, but that's true of honeybees too. However, if you come to a nest like this one and you're unfamiliar and you start poking it around to see what it's about, maybe you want to know if anything alive is in there. Maybe you're one of those 12-year-olds that likes to throw rocks at things. You're going to get an unwelcome response because here they have a lot to defend. So because they don't warm their brood and they don't warm their eggs and things like that, when the weather turns for the worse here in the northeastern United States for good, when the cold weather comes and the freezing temps arrive at night, everything remaining in the nest will die. They'll freeze. Which residents do not freeze? The queens that they make. The queens that they produce at the end of the year will be next year's yellow jacket wasp nest makers. So they have to spend winter somewhere. Usually it's under a log or in someone's shed wall, or you'll even find them in a pile of hay or something like that. But what they've done is they've managed to metabolize a type of antifreeze that prohibits them from dying, increases their chances of survival. Also, see, that's a drone right there. That's a male. They produce these drones, and the drones mate with the queens that they produce at the end of the year. And when they do that, of course, the drones don't survive winter. So each queen goes out and goes through winter as a solitary specimen. If she survives, her first order of business is to, of course, get nectar to feed herself. She can't eat meat, remember. And to gather cellulose off of unprotected wood. Sometimes it's just plants that have nice heavy stalks. I've seen them harvesting cellulose from old sunflower stalks and things like that. And they'll build their first paper nest on their own. Then they will start laying eggs. Once those eggs finally hatch, once they go through that larvae state, they cap their cells over, and then they're in the pupa state. Once they complete the pupa phase, they emerge as adults. Once those adults are out, the queen has done her job. She no longer has to forage. The adults will do that for her, and that's how the nest progresses. So each queen that winter's over becomes a queen of a new colony. Some people will be sitting there thinking, you have a great opportunity here. Once she produces all those queens, you can collect them all and stop all those nests from existing. And I'm here to say, as a beekeeper, I don't think that that's that important where I live, because it's very rare. Now, it's very common to have the wasps put pressure on hives, try to steal things. If you get up at sunrise and look at your honeybee landing boards, what's happening in the honeybee yard? Your bees are getting rid of their drones coming up on wintertime because they don't need them anymore. So the male honeybees are being discarded. Often they're just dropped on the ground right in front of the hive, or they're dead on the landing board early in the morning because the undertaker bees left them there and they haven't had time to dispense with them by casting them off in a field somewhere. So what happens is, an opportunistic wasp comes by. Look, there is a pupa drone on the landing board. So often you'll find them carving them up on the landing board, and some beekeepers will see that and say, look, they're killing my drones. They must have gone in the hive, got that developing larvae and dragged it out, and now they're eating it. Actually, it was the female, the worker honeybees, that stopped feeding them, dragged them out, and got rid of them. So it's a way of recycling. These are actually a cleanup crew. Now, I'm not trying to win you over and get you to keep a bunch of yellow jacket wasps around, because they're just going to be fantastic for everything. This particular wasp nest is not in a good position. It's so low to the ground, I had to put up a little barrier line so people know that they're here, so nobody will bother them or inadvertently walk into their sting range. So if they're 20 feet up in a tree, it's no problem at all. High in a tree, let them be. But when they're down in the walk area, or they're right next to someone's door and things like that, they seem kind of passive for most of the year, but then at the end of the year when the nest is big and now there's hundreds of residents, that means they have hundreds of females that could be stinging you. That's when you need to deal with them. But I think I've demonstrated with this experiment here that you can collect these nests and the nest material. I've done it with paper wasps, where I collected and relocated them and stuck their nest somewhere else, and then they just continued with their business. So I think you could actually take a yellow jacket nest if you wanted to, and it was in a bad location early in the year, not a full-blown nest like this one, but a small nest. It's just starting out. You could collect it, put it on something else, put it in an old birdhouse or something like that, and you could expect them to use that shelter and continue to develop their colony, and then they would do their pest control for you absolutely chemical free all summer long. And then you could just watch them. So maybe if you're like me, you can pull up a chair and sit down with your video gear, or not. Just bring something hot to drink or whatever you like to do. Stare at them, watch what they do, spend some time. Learn about the different workers here and what they're doing. What is going on here on the lower right? That wasp came out and now they're fanning their hive. Now I said hive, it's just a nest. Honeybees live in a hive, wasps have a nest. Now you might be used to the ones that are in ground, but this is interesting to me because these are fanning, and not just that, it seems to be a job that they have, because later on in this video you will notice, if you're paying attention, that one of them has one of its antennae clipped off. So that's an identifier. And with that antenna clipped off, we know that that fanning wasp, that's what it does. It helps ventilate this paper nest. So now they're all doing it. Look how they're lining up and fanning across that opening. It's only 81 degrees Fahrenheit and the wasp nest is in the shade. So I don't really know what the temperature parameters are for them when it comes to their larvae or comfort zone or what they need for development inside the paper nest. But they definitely want to move air around because there's probably respiration going on in there. They probably need to clear out some CO2. So I'm going to leave you to watch the rest of this. I think I've explained pretty much what you're looking at, and there's the wasp I was talking about. At the 6 o'clock position, the left antenna is clipped off. And throughout the day, that particular wasp emerged several times and took up a position and started fanning the opening the way it's doing right now. So they are very interesting. Now, if you notice, I mentioned that. You can also hear one inside. Listen. It's fanning its wings and trying to ventilate the hive, but its wings are hitting on the interior layers of the cellulose there. So that seems to me like a good way to wear out your wings. And here, look at that protein going in. It looked like it was a big fly. So that's the other thing, they nab flies and bring them in. They nab lots of things that you might think are pests. I wonder just how many bees they really do collect and get in there, because when they raid a beehive, they're usually after the nectar. They're just opportunistic feeders. That's why they're taking the pupa state bees that are tossed out. Maybe it's chill brood, or maybe they're just drones that they're cleaning up and getting out. They're actually a cleanup crew. If you look at them in the right way, I don't think they're that bad after all, because here I am spending hours with them just so that you can see them, watching them, putting my camera lens up 4, 5, 6 inches away, depending on the sequence that I'm shooting, so you can hear them, so you can see them, and so you can learn about them. Is it winning you over a little? Maybe, if nothing else, you'll become more tolerant of the yellow jacket wasps. Now, as I said before, I'd be a hypocrite if I said that there's no time in which you would have to take them out. Look at this little jumping spider, top right there. Scooting in there, trying to get a close look. Maybe it's going to grab one of these wasps. Nah, it changed its mind. Smart move, because that could have turned into a little food pellet for them. I don't think you're going to see a jumping spider come in and nab one of these yellow jacket wasps. But I was hoping to get some drama there. That was interesting. So let me know what you think. What's your opinion of wasps? And if you spend more time learning about them and watching them, would it change your reaction to them? Because by putting up this barrier, we just had a birthday party in this yard. A bunch of 8 and 9-year-olds running around, and some younger than that. And as long as they avoided the nest, everything was fine. Maybe we could teach them some appreciation for these things. Now here's another thing about it. I said that they recognized me. Did you know that they recognize each other? Look at the markings on their faces. If you notice, they have, of course, a very dramatic face, black, yellow. But there's a little spot on their face right above their mandibles. If you notice when you look at the different residents of this colony, that little marking is slightly different on a lot of their faces. Do you know they memorize the way they look, and that they're staring at each other like honeybees? They have 5 eyes. They have 2 big compound eyes, and then they have the 3 little ocella there. If you collected one of these wasps and you took a pen and you marked a little dot or 2 on its face and changed its appearance, when it went back inside this paper nest, they would not recognize her anymore, and they would reject her, because she no longer looks familiar. Now, depending on what that wasp does, if it's a forager and she's bringing in resources, she could win them over still, and they could soon learn that, the one with 3 dots on her forehead, or whatever you happen to do, if she's productive, then they will start to recognize her, and then they will accept her back into the hive, into the nest. So there are slight differences that you and I would not pick up on. Also, where's my one antenna fanner? 3 o'clock position right there. That's what she does. That's her job. So the one lower left that's not fanning, kind of opening and closing the mandibles a little bit, doing some little flicks with her antennae. That's a guard. Checking the wasps going in. But it would be great if we could teach people that these are not bees. Bees get a bad rap because when people are stung by wasps, they often report on social media right away, I was stung by bees. And then they're afraid of all bees. These are wasps. Very distinctive. Very different. Their nests are a big tell. So, don't interact with them. I invite you to watch the rest of it. Just listen, observe, see what you see, and see if they don't grow on you just a tiny bit. There goes that pollen. Did you see that? So let me know what you think. And guess what's coming up after this? Down the road, we're going to take this nest apart once the cold weather hits. We're going to do a examination of all the interior chambers, and we're going to see the differences in drone, queen, worker cell size. Let's see what happened. Maybe we'll even open it up and watch some of them. I'm not making any promises because we could get a storm at any time that could ruin this whole nest. There's that little spider again. Isn't that persistent? Top right. Coming back down to check things out. I really don't think there's anything in here that it can eat. But we'll take the nest apart. We'll see what's going on inside and hopefully be able to share more. I've done this with other yellow jacket wasp nests before. We've autopsied them. We've taken them apart. I have found deformed wing virus in these nests before. So if you go to the website, the YouTube channel, Frederick Dunn, and you type into the search bar wasp or yellow jackets, you'll find all of the videos I've made about them. So I hope you enjoy this one. Thanks again for watching.